Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's right on 10:30, and I want to make sure that we have ample time to get through the material that we have today. I want to welcome all of you to today's training, Natural Supports for Today. And I want to introduce CODSN to all of you. We are the family network for Central and Eastern Oregon, and we have programming in Crook, Deschutes, Jefferson, Klamath, and Harney counties. We are all family members of a child or children that experience disability. And we bring peer-delivered supports to families that have a child that experiences disability, providing resources, connection, and community. We believe that families are stronger and more resilient when they feel welcome and are a part of their community. We help families become equipped to advocate for their child or children in all aspects of their lives, whether it be education, health, employment, or community. And we strive to break that isolation oftentimes families feel when raising a child with a disability. Part of the work that we do is bringing trainings like the one you're going to participate in today. So we're excited that you're joining us. My name's Jenny Cavano, and I'm the program director for CODSN. And what brings me to this work is my eldest son, Christian, who you can see in this picture, and he's 24. And he, when it's not COVID and is able to work out in the community, works at Providence Park and the Motor Center, rocking all the sports games. And he uses the money that he earns in his job to go on vacations to places that he loves to go. One of the things that we as a family have helped Christian understand is what natural supports look like in his everyday life. And we're going to talk more about that today with our expert panel. So just a few housekeeping things that I want to go over is that everyone is muted. We're in a webinar platform today, so please use your chat box. We're going to be allowing time at the end for questions. This is recorded, and the recording records both the video of the panelists and anything that is in the chat box. If you have joined us today via phone, please leave in the chat an email address where we can connect with you. We are going to go ahead now and launch a little bit of CODSN's programming. So we have a couple of trainings coming up in December on the behavior series. We'd love for you to join us for that. We have a youth mental health first aid for adult assisting youth virtual training on November 27th and December 29th, and there are still spots open for that. And we have the Central Oregon and Klamath counties parent gratitude craft and connection night if you're in those areas. We are also going to showcase the panel that we have today on the 9th of December in this awesome building resilience while avoiding burnout. And we would love for you to sign up for that. And if you need to contact us at all, this is the information for Central Oregon Disability Support Network. We're going to launch a quick poll right now as we get ready to start the actual webinar content. So I'm going to launch the poll right now. And if you wouldn't mind answering the questions that come up. I'm good at asking for help. I'm good at receiving help. I'm good at giving help. True, false, or prefer not to answer. And if you panelists want to answer as well, that would be awesome, because we'd love to know.
I don't think we're able to. Or I know I'm not. As a host, I don't know if the panelists
Okay. Can. Yeah, I was able to enable it for the panelists.
Oh, good. Okay.
So I know that this is something that was a challenge for me to learn how to ask for help. I was always good at giving help, but never at asking. Had to work on that. Okay, so we're getting there. We have about 3 more seconds left.
It wouldn't let me do it, but I am also I have a really hard time asking for help. Great at giving help. I like, anybody ask me, I'm on it, but for me to get help, yeah.
And I
Okay.
think you had even said your name has yes in it, right, Yesenia?
Yes. It's actually,
Okay.
yes, part of that part.
I'm going to launch one more. How did it make you feel? Think of the last time that you gave help. How did it make you feel? And would you like to do it again? I know that that's, especially now during the pandemic, that's been very helpful for me, is to reach out and help other people. So about 25 seconds left and we'll close the poll.
Look at that. Lots of people who enjoy helping and who would do it again. That's really fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I would like us to welcome today our 4 guest speakers. We have Melissa and Yesenia and Shauna and Becky with us today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Thanks for joining us, and I'm going to hand it over to Shauna.
I am going to, okay, perfect. So, let me share my screen as we get started. Okay. So my name is Shauna, and I'm the proud parent of 2 young adults. One experiences a neurodevelopmental disability. Getting help for her when she was younger was really challenging, and it wasn't until I met someone who had a similar lived experience that I was able to get her the supports that she needed. And one of the things that I found out, just like we saw in the polls, was that I was really good at helping others, and I needed help too, and I didn't know how to ask, and I didn't even know what I would ask people. So I took a training on natural supports, and I put it on my radar that I was going to get better at doing it. And I'm still working on asking for help. I'm better than I was. And I learned too of the many benefits. And it wasn't just for me, it was for my entire family and the people helping me as well. So I want to just invite you today as we learn with our panelists. We're going to be centering Black, Latino, and elder voices. We had invited Lisa from the Grand Ron tribes, and sadly, while she's not here on the panel, she's with us in spirit. So let's look a little bit closer at just acknowledging the original people of the land. We want to thank the many ancestors of the original people, as well as the present and future elders, for their caring of the land. I live in Multnomah County, where our land was used as a summer stopping ground for lots of tribes. So today, like I said, we're centering voices from the Black, Latino, and elder populations. We have Melissa, who is an unapologetically Black social working life coach and speaker. She advocates for wellness, for mental health, and radical self-care. And she encourages people to live authentically in a way that is honoring of their own terms. And while she is not a parent, she has so much to offer and has helped many families and many people throughout her life. We have Yesenia, who for the first 12 years lived down in LA and has been a proud Mexican-American living in Klamath Falls ever since. And when she lived down in LA, she describes her time there as a Mexican-American version of my big fat Greek wedding. So I want to just thank them for being here. And last but not least, we have Becky, and you can see she's down there. I believe that's with Olaf. And she has lived down in the Southern Oregon area for 40 years. She is the parent of 10. She's the grandparent of 18 and has 7 great grandchildren. And she's been raising her grandson since he was a baby. He's now in his teen years, and he experiences mental health challenges. So we are looking forward to learning together. So as we move forward, we just want to acknowledge that this is a really challenging time with the pandemic. Here we are, November 18th, 2020. The entire state is entering another It's not the extreme shelter in place, but we have done more of a shelter in place than we've done before. We are in just unprecedented times in our political system, our political world. And we just want to invite you to have grace for yourself and grace for others as we learn together. We also want you to know that kids and pets are welcome. Last time we had, so you might see a child or a pet of ours joining in the conversation as well. We invite you to engage as you wish. So thank you for taking part in the polls. You're welcome to type in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. If there's something that you really like, feel free to type +++ in the chat. Also, if you'll practice self-care, you'll see each of us probably taking a drink here or there. Feel free to get up and walk around, move about the cabin, if you will. So I want to introduce Melissa. She is going to walk us through a breathing exercise that she alluded to last week. And I'm excited for this. We love to do breathing with Melissa. So thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. You know, breathing is something we do every single day, so it's not something that we consider that it can control so much and help so much in regards to relaxation. So let's give it a try now, just in case you, like me or anyone else that's living in this current world, might feel a little anxiety or stress. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if it feels safe to do so. If it does feel safe, close your eyes, relax your jaw, your forehead, and your shoulders. Give your neck a little wiggle. Roll your shoulders back and forth, just really gently and slowly. And note any place you might be holding any tension. And if you are holding tension somewhere in one of those muscles, let it go. Place your feet flat on the floor, if that's something you're able to do, and allow your body to be supported fully by wherever you're sitting. So if that's your couch, your chair, the floor, let that surface absorb every single ounce of you. I also invite you to take your hands and put them behind your back. And for some people, they like to put them above their head like this. And you lay on your back, lay on your hands, and start to breathe. I'm going to walk you through those breaths. So I invite you to take a deep inhalation through your nose. Hold it for 2 seconds and then breathe out through your mouth. Let's try a few together. Just in through your nose, holding it for a couple of seconds if you can, and then out through your mouth. Let's take one more together. Thank you. Sean, I believe you're next.
That was wonderful. Thank you. I know I feel a lot more relaxed. I appreciate that. Oh, and isn't it amazing how something as simple as breath can do that? So as we are talked about, we are going to discuss natural support. So we're going to define that. We're going to talk about the benefits and the barriers. We're going to give you some tools and then also talk about some safety considerations if you're arranging natural supports for yourself or your child or a loved one.
So natural supports are personal relationships that enhance quality and security of another's life that occur naturally for you, your child, your family, or your family of choice.
Yes, and there's no step-by-step. We can't just hand you a list and say, these are the natural supports you need and these are the type of people you need to ask. It really takes brainstorming. It depends on the strengths, needs, and challenges of your family. It depends on your circumstances. And but the idea of a natural support is that they occur in the community where you are. They're unpaid, and yet there's usually some sort of give and take, some reciprocal aspect to them. So Yesenia, will you tell us a little bit more about what a natural support might do?
Of course. So as we get older, asking for help becomes harder and harder. Who remembers going to a friend's house as a teenager and helping clean your friend's room? I remember my brother used to have the dirtiest room ever. Typical teenager. There was food that could easily be a science project. The smell, well, I'll just let you imagine that part. But in high school, one day his friends called and asked if he wanted to hang out. He went and asked my mother, and of course she said, you have to clean your room. Well, he used to be a big football player, and all his friends were also big football players. Well, they went into the house, 4 of them, and started cleaning his room, and they made it spotless. And like I said, I remember going to friends' houses doing the same thing. But what happened, as we get older, it feels like it's getting harder and harder to ask, or you feel judged that if your friend's coming to help you with the dishes or laundry, it's because you can't do it. So natural support could be help with childcare, respite, shopping, repairs. Melissa, you have a wonderful story about this.
I do. You know, my wife had a car that had a blown head gasket, and through a lot of effort from herself and from our neighbor, we've only lived in this space for 2 years, but our neighbor decided to help her. And he's a retired mechanic, but he decided to step in, help her, and she was able to get the car to last for 1 year after the head gasket had blown. And normally when we think about our support and who supports us, we sometimes forget about those individuals that don't necessarily fit into friends or family. We forget about the neighbors, the coaches, and the coworkers. But I invite you to consider them, because if my wife hadn't have considered the neighbor and the neighbor hadn't have stepped in, we would have had to buy another car really soon. So when you ask for help, and it cannot necessarily always feel great, but when you do choose to ask for help, you want it to be something where you feel you are getting value and the other person can see their contribution. We all like feeling accomplished in our tasks. So consider small but meaningful tasks, such as helping to navigate around a car, or consider tasks that are one and done. It doesn't always have to be these things, but you definitely want to make sure that it's something where it's viable and it's meaningful for both you and the person that you're asking to help you. And I know Becky has a fabulous story, and I'd love to hear more about it.
Yes, I never meant to keep my grandson forever, only until his mom could make better parenting choices. But by the time he was 2, I was mom and he wasn't going anywhere. By the time he was 4, I was crippled and going on to disability. He turned 5 and my marriage was over. My husband left town and I became a single parent at a time in my life called my golden years. What just happened? My ex called almost every day, but that didn't help with the yard work or respite care or putting food on the table. But I was resilient and my grandson was strong, so he took out the trash and recycle, helped get the wood in, brought in the paper, and took care of the dog. But our 1,700 square foot home and our 3/4 acre yard needed more help. A friend of mine mentioned how bored her husband was since retirement. I told her, when he runs out of things to do, you send him to my backyard. The next thing I know, he's in my backyard, wanting to know where to start. I said, think of this as your yard. If it works for you, it'll work for me. And that began a 4-year maintenance program with my yard. And he never would take a penny, only an occasional bottle of water.
That's amazing. And it meant so much to that retired person to do that, to be that help, that natural support, as it did to you, Becky. I can only imagine how you felt when you looked outside and saw the grass trimmed and the shrubs trimmed. That just must have warmed your heart. So, Yesenia, will you talk to us? So we've already talked about how it's, we all enjoy it. Can you talk to us about the barriers of why we don't?
Yeah, there's some barriers, and I'm going to give briefly a quick story before then, but I am Mexican American, as Shauna has stated, and in my culture, the husband provides and the woman takes care of the kids. I'm happy to say things are changing and it's becoming more equal. However, my husband is still very fond of his Mexican culture, so I don't get much help with the kids. And as Shauna had stated, my family is like the version of the big fat Greek wedding. Unfortunately, most of my family is in California, so I don't have much support there. However, my mother, she's the greatest support, and I can honestly say I would not be the person who I am without her. So I have 2 wonderful children. I have an amazing 7-year-old daughter and a wonderful 9-year-old son. My son was born with cerebral palsy, and my mother has been my natural support with my kids. Unfortunately, one day my mom had to have surgery and had to be in the hospital for a week. My worst fear happened. I had no backup. I had nobody else but my mother. So I had some barriers. I had to instantly ask anybody I could think of for help. And I had fear of rejection. I had, especially because I needed someone now. There was fear of being judged. Why didn't you have more support? Fear of not being done the way, and most of all, fear that my child would not be safe, especially my son with medical needs. So there are fears or barriers when asking for help, but we have to be vulnerable. And Becky, you have another story that's really good.
Yes, when my church was going through some transitions, I was picking up children and bringing them to church on Sunday. One Sunday morning, I walked in with a 3-year-old in diapers attached to my hand, very unsure of how his first day was going to work out. He dropped my hand, walked up the center aisle to the 3rd pew from the back, slid into that pew, and backed up onto the lap of an elderly lady. He did not know her, nor she him, and I about had a heart attack. As I darted to retrieve the child, the lady's husband stood up, faced me, and held up his hand, whispering, "She hasn't held a baby in a very long time. Please just give her a few minutes." After that moment, that was his spot every Sunday morning, and for an hour and a half every Sunday morning, that was her baby. Melissa, do you have some thoughts on this?
I do, Becky. Thank you. That's a fabulous story. The little child just felt like he wanted to hang out with somebody, and he hung out with someone that needed it, and that's beautiful. Usually one thing that stops us when we're feeling like we need help and stop us from asking for help is fear, like Yesenia mentioned. One thing my mother always told me was to face the fear and do it anyway. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. I'd be remiss to say, "Oh yeah, this is perfectly fine. Yeah, just do it." But sometimes that's what you have to do. Acknowledge that the discomfort is real and do your best to work to release it. So yes, it is possible that things could go wrong, but they can also go very, very right. And more than likely, all will be well. So take the time to make sure that you are listening to yourself. Listen, pay attention, and see if there's anything that says, actually, this could be a good thing versus not. And then regarding asking for help, don't think for the person. So you want to limit your assumptions, which can sometimes be really hard, especially if you are in a really stressed space. We can create stories for someone else. I actually created a story from someone yesterday that told me he broke his neck. I created an entire story before he got to it, how he broke his neck. So limit those assumptions, okay? And then always remember that expectations are planned resentments. Ask for help, but remember that everyone has something going on, especially in this COVID times. And I also invite you to be prepared for a yes and a no answer. Usually we can prepare ourselves for the no, but if someone just says, yes, I can help you, sometimes that can feel disjointing. And so you want to be prepared for both of them. Also, I want to introduce the notion of spoons. So spoons are a visual representation used as a unit of measure to quantify the mental and physical energy that a person has available for activities of daily living. So every one of us arises with a certain amount of spoons each day. You use those spoons to get out of bed, shower, shop, walk your dog, make your meals, talk to your families. And the number of spoons that each activity requires can change depending on the person, and actually can change within the person. So think about how you feel attending to your housework and everything you need to do on a day where you feel good and you feel the sun is out shining and you love the sunshine, versus a day where it may have a negative association. Maybe there was some type of history or trauma or unfortunate event that occurred on that day, what the spoons you may have look like. So I invite you to face your fear, do it anyway, and also consider yourself, listen to yourself, and listen to others, and invite them to help you. Becky, I think you have more.
Yes, the benefits of natural supports. It enriches your lives of everybody involved. It increases the web of support and carries through during hard times. Paid ones come and go, but natural supports relationships usually are longer term. Natural supports carry us through some of the really hard times. For instance, after staying in Vancouver for 6 months while my grandson was in a treatment center in Portland, we came home 3 days before Thanksgiving. My grandson's dad showed up and announced he wanted to be part of my grandson's life. My first thought, thank you, Jesus. I could see recliner time in my future, breakfast with the ladies, shopping by myself. They went fishing, camping, boating. They had sleepovers and barbecues. My grandson was happy, I was happy, and life was good. After a year of bliss, Dad was gone, and my grandson was shattered. But you get out the glue, put the pieces back together, and hope the scars are not too deep. My grandson got a PSW, which helped out a lot. Through Citizens for Safe School, he also got a mentor, which was great. The next year, we spent traveling with Special Olympics, and that was the most amazing time of all.
And Becky, Special Olympics has a special place in my heart. I used to be a lifeguard for them. And, you know, that is a perfect example of natural supports. You were sharing with me about when they went to Corvallis and the athletes got to go down into the stadium and all of the college athletes surrounded them and just built them up. And it was a great way for community. And, you know, it is so important for not only getting out into the community for everyday life. Melissa, will you tell us? You've got a great story that illustrates this.
You know, dealing with social connections, it can be really tempting to keep to ourselves, and especially in these COVID times where we're mandated to keep to ourselves. But outside of, you can think of the before times, having those social connections help to build better worlds for ourselves, connect with our world, and feel better. So in building communication skills, and life skills will help to serve throughout the lifespan. You know, positive relationships will help to nourish our sense of self. Sometimes, especially for people that are caregivers or primary caregivers of of children or young adults that have either a mental or physical disability, they're living with one of those, they can feel the need to keep them safe. And of course, you want to keep your child as safe as you possibly can. But I want to mention my cousin. He lives in another state. He was born with a developmental delay. And his parents loved him to pieces, and they took the absolute best care of him that they could see that they were taking care of him. However, when they passed away, my cousin couldn't take care of himself. So he was able to do certain things, but he had never made a meal for himself. He'd never made a sandwich. So unfortunately, he got into a space where he started to go hungry because he didn't know how to access food or how to prepare the food. And what happened is that another family member noticed him one day, noticed that he was not inside of his usual weight range, and checked in, and then found out that no, he was not eating, and he hadn't had any food in quite some time. So while his parents loved him, they didn't prepare him for life after his passing. So after their passing, excuse me, he's still with us. And then the community stepped up and started sending him one heaping pile of food of a plate per day, so probably equivalent to 2 or 3 servings each day, to try to help him to eat. And he began to gain weight again, and his cognition went back to what it had been before he was going hungry. So I say this story to only highlight that, yes, you want to keep your children safe, but you also want to encourage them to build relationships in community and prepare them for life outside of you. Shauna, I believe you also have some natural supports.
And I appreciate you sharing that. I've done some work about supported decision making through the ARC. They have a whole a video course for free on their website, and it just really talks about how we honor the people that we love who do need that support. So anyway, I appreciate you sharing that. So I have a fun story of my dear friend. Her name is Bridget, and she came into my life at a time where I was empty nesting, and I was really going through it because I loved spending time with my children. And when it became time for them to move out of the nest, I was feeling a great loss. And I happen to love swimming, as does Bridget. We actually are part of a small group of friends that we call ourselves mermaids. And that was before you could find mermaid stuff everywhere. So we met swimming, and I was at a life stage where I was lonely and I could use a friend, and she was a widow and doesn't have children. And so we met and we realized that we really like a lot of the same things. We love being out in nature. We love to go hiking. We love to go swimming. We adore chocolate and cheese and great bargains. And that first Christmas where I didn't have children home, Bridget came to my home and she helped decorate my house with me. And, it was so special because instead of me being sad, I got to, she helped me decorate my childhood sled. I'd never done that before, and put greens in other places that I never had. And so we have this mutual relationship in that she likes to go hiking and doesn't drive. And so we have great adventures together. And, if I had not taken that risk of saying, hey, would you like to, or could you, would you help me decorate my house for Christmas? And that was just something, that's not something that has to be done, right? But I took that risk and it really paid off for both of us. And this is us. She treated us to go to Hamilton, and And you've never heard the great Hamilton until you've heard her rap it. It's fantastic. So we have already done the poll where we talked about it of that we enjoy doing it. So go ahead, Becky, and would you share?
Yes, and if you tuned in late, this morning when we first started, Jenny walked us through two polls. The second one was, and if you didn't get a chance to do it, if you would please do it now. So the second one said, when was the last time you helped someone, and how did it make you feel, and would you do it again? And so if you would just mark that and submit it, that would be great. And I'll just share briefly that I, for a while, was helping a friend of mine with her meds every week. I put them in order for the week. And then we would sometimes go shopping for just, briefly just to get what she needed. And then sometimes even stop and have go through a fast food for lunch. And it was her time out every week, and she appreciated it. And I was able to do it, so I was glad to help.
That is wonderful, Becky. And as I was looking through the polls, most of us have answered that yes, it feels good. We would do it again, and it just feels wonderful. And like I said, part of my name is Yes Senia. I'm the yes girl, and I would drop anything and help out instantly. It doesn't matter what it is. But we usually tend to be great natural support, but sometimes it's really hard for us to ask and get natural support. So we go to the next slide. How do we ask for natural supports? So we have to be specific. As I mentioned previously, I had an emergency. My mother was in the hospital. I had nobody else. It would have been great to have this beforehand, but when we're looking for natural supports, it's really important to be clear and communicate. When do you need help? In my case, now. Time commitment. It would have been during the day when my husband was still working. How often? Only in case of emergencies. What do you expect for my children to stay alive? But will you have backup? And this is really important, because what if they have an emergency and then they now have to find someone for your children? So it's really important to have backups and have this very clear when you're communicating and asking for or asking for help. Becky, you have something as well.
Yes, when I had lumbar surgery, I thought I could take care of myself, but I ended up back in the hospital a day after coming home with an infection in my legs. My granddaughter saw right off that I was going to need some help. She slept next to me on a small fold-out chair with her 9-month-old baby to make sure that I ate 2 crackers and took my meds every 4 hours. She made sure I got up and walked several times a day as ordered by the doctor. She even had to rescue my earrings from the shower when they got away from me. She did all the driving and kept us on schedule. I told her she did a great job and suggested she work for an assisted living place because she took such good care of me. But she said I was the only one she wanted to take care of. But then she got a job at an assisted living place and has been working there for almost 3 years. Melissa, would you like to share?
Yeah, Becky, that is a beautiful story because she was dedicated, especially with having a baby. So that's so wonderful to hear. So regarding asking for help, you want to be specific. So you want it to be a clear and concise ask to the other person. So nothing where it's like, will you help me? Because that can be so vague. It's like, well, what do you need help with? So be specific. Will you help me with 4 loads of laundry on the 20th? Ask them to call you at least an hour before if they're not able to make it to actually help you. So this way you're not stressing out. And if for some reason something came up, they can at least let you know beforehand that they can't make it. And as I mentioned before, you want to be prepared for a yes or no answer. I mentioned the laundry. You know, you may need those 4 loads of laundry, or maybe if it's even 8 loads of laundry you need help with. And if the person says yes, you need to also be ready for them to say, yes, I would help you wash all of your clothes. And you need to be ready for that. Acknowledge that discomfort that you might feel from asking for the help, and also from receiving the answer. So we can't emphasize it enough. Be specific in your ask. And, you know, if you can't ask, if you don't ask, then the answer is always no. Becky, I believe you're coming back up, right?
Yes, all of this can be very daunting. So we have some great tools for you. 2 of them are for brainstorming for emergencies and life domains. And the other 2 are the one-page profiles and the amazing Swindle Care notebook and organizer. So this is the Family Emergency Support Team graph. Or chart. And so you might not need all of the things that are on here. For instance, if you don't have any pets, you won't need someone to take care of the pets. But you might need somebody to do the laundry, like Melissa said, or you might need a ride to the hospital, or you might need somebody to pick up the kids from school. So you can print it off, and you can, and I'd print off a couple of copies, because you know you might put everything down today, and then 2 months down the road, some of those things may change. People move, or you acquire new friendships and people that can help you more. And so just use it as it works for your needs, and what would be beneficial to your family.
Becky, and this was created by parents who have kids with special health needs. The Oregon Family to Family Health Information Center, who I used to work for, they created this. And you can, when you download it, there's a whole emergency packet that Becky will allude to later. I had a friend when her daughter was 16, had cancer, and she didn't want help from anybody. She just said, oh, we've got it, we've got it. She was so overwhelmed. And when I showed her this tool 10 years later, she took a deep breath and she said, wow. She said, I got through that time, our family got through that time, but we were in crisis for 3 or 4 months. And we got through it, but we didn't get through well. And she said, specifically, if I had thought about it, I would have had somebody helping me with my younger son who couldn't be around his sister because of the radiation treatments and things. And so, a lot of times we have that, we're independent and we've just got to handle our, bear your own burden. And yet it can have, the consequences cannot be just on you. It can affect your family as well. So I encourage you to get over those barriers and that risk and that fear, like Melissa talked about, is face that fear and just think, maybe if I don't do this, there will be some other consequences. And the other thing is, Becky, you shared with us the NAMI crisis file, and this is for people experiencing a mental health crisis, this crisis file. This would be an excellent thing to add to that. And Jenny, thank you so much for adding those in the chat so people can download those. And Melissa, you are going to talk a little bit about this life course tool, the life domain vision tool. So those of you who are familiar with the life course, we've just looked at this as a way of exploring. So would you walk us through a couple thoughts on this?
Oh, thank you, Shauna. As we mentioned earlier, usually we consider friends or family or our most beloveds when we think about our natural supports in our community. But we can also consider coworkers, neighbors, and people with whom we have regular engagement. For instance, at one point, I was a regular every Tuesday at a particular restaurant pre-COVID. And when I had a death in my family, I was really upset. And while I wasn't trying to get any type of free food, their way of taking care of me in that moment was to give me my favorite dish from them for free. So they became a support for me, even though that was not necessarily someone you would generally consider. So engaging with on a regular basis can help to reduce the sense of loneliness. So loneliness can be highly problematic across the lifespan. There's not a single age where loneliness feels fantastic for people. So this doesn't mean if you're alone, some people can be alone and not lonely, but it can be problematic as a child and it can be problematic as an elder. So remember to check in on your elders, your college students, and the children that have had their social lives disrupted, especially in this era of COVID. Another thing I invite you to do, because all of us have had, or many of us have had our lives significantly disrupted, is finding ways to engage, to encourage those natural supports, encourage those communications with people that are outside of our household, is to volunteer. For instance, Meals on Wheels right now, you can do wellness calls. You could attend virtual meetups. You can do socially and physically distanced outdoor church gatherings with very limited amount of people. There's so many options that you can still do right now, even though it feels a lot different. Yesenia, you're up next.
Yes, so we talked about brainstorming of who could be our natural supports. So now let's talk about how to prepare those natural supports. So we're gonna be talking about the one person centered one page profile. I absolutely love this. As I stated before, my mother had surgery and I was not prepared with the natural support. However, I was prepared with a person-centered one-page profile. And what that is, it focuses on the person. Like I said, it was very last minute, and I usually tend to say the things my child can't do. Not because that's how I see him, but because it's very important information that I need to disclose. But the one-page profile, the really nice thing, it focuses on the person. It does strengths, attributes, visions, goals, what works, what does not work. Fact Oregon has an amazing resource with templates and examples of how to do this. And it's really fun to do it with your children. If they can be there and they can tell you what works, what doesn't work, it's wonderful. And I have this everywhere. I have it in the Vans glove compartment. I have it in my children's backpacks. My mom has some. So it's just a very quick one-page summary of your children.
And you
Becky,
can,
oh, sorry.
so you can download it or have that sent. And now, Becky, you're going to talk
Yes.
about our.
So another great tool is the Care Notebook put out by Swindle. It is free of charge, and we really need to be prepared for times when things come up, like maybe the main caregiver goes to the hospital. What would that look like for you? Do you have friends and family readily available who know what to do at a moment's notice? So this Care Notebook and resource organizer is great. It comes with sleeves and dividers and plastic sheets in it, and I think you can download it or order it, and it has a place down here at the bottom where it tells you the information to get it. Another great help is the toolkit, Planning for Health Emergencies from Oregon Center for Children and Youth with Special Needs. And this is another one you can download or send for it. Both of those you have access to and are great helps.
So we're going to look at a few examples. Like Becky said, you can download it or they can mail it to you. But it's 60 pages, and you don't need, sometimes you don't need all of it. So only use what applies to you. But some of the nice things about it is it has that health summary, family history, specialized equipment. Like my son has a wheelchair, so it's nice because I could put there the model number, the who provides the services, specific care needs. So it's a really wonderful resource. It's a lot more detailed. So that one-page profile is a very quick summary, and then you could put then there's a 60-page binder after it. But then it also has on the next, like I said, I just grabbed 3 slides just to quickly explain them. Pain management. This is really important with my son. My son does not speak, but he can. So he can't say, I'm in pain. However, there's clues. And if somebody who doesn't know him, they would never know. His clue is he laughs when he's in pain. One time, it was in the middle of the night, I heard him giggling. And for a second, I thought oh, that's so cute. And then I instantly remembered, he doesn't giggle like that. He doesn't laugh. I turned on the light. His face was definitely showing pain. But his way of expressing it is through laughter. So if somebody doesn't know that, you could put that here, and then how often. He has a really high pain tolerance. So it's really important to make sure that you disclose that. And then another thing is socializing play information. I have a friend who has a child with autism, and he plays differently than what typical children will play. And it's really important to put that here so whoever's watching that child could see oh, he was playing. He's trying to show affection, or he's trying to play with other children, because it may look completely different.
So we've been talking a little bit about safety, and we're going to brush through some ideas. And of course, we always want to, vet the people who work with them. But Yesenia, will you share some other ideas with us?
So safety is really important for me. My daughter can self-advocate. My son is a little bit harder. So we have to trust who your natural support is. I usually tend to ask my son's paraprofessionals. So if my para who watches my son, who really knows him, in a simple question of, would you be a natural support in case of an emergency? Looking for background checks. The schools tend to do background checks, so I would know and feel more comfortable that there was already a background check. But churches, those who really know your child. And one of the things that is really important is trust your child. If your child is very friendly and happy, but with an individual, he is completely opposite, trust your child and respect their decision that may not be a natural support for them. Melissa?
That's so true, Yesenia. You always need to listen to them, because if they don't have the language skills to say that something's going on, then you could be missing something. So listen to your child, but also listen to yourself. Don't ignore your gut feelings. So if you meet somebody and then everything in you starts saying no, then there might be a reason for that. So listen to your spidey senses. I had a brief story of an apartment manager that when I met him, something didn't feel right. I was dismissive of myself. And then later on, I found out he was entering my apartment without my permission or knowledge. So always listen to yourself. Heed the advice of your most trusted confidants. If they're telling you this person isn't right or this situation isn't right, consider the source. So am I responding to a prior situation, or am I responding to the here and now? Above all else, listen to you and listen to your children. Shauna?
Yes, and we also have some other considerations due to COVID. It's always important to practice that physical distancing, wash your hands, wear masks around people that you are not living in a household with, limit your time. Once we're out of this 2 weeks, we're supposed to be able to go back to large spaces where we can physically distance. And if you have somebody who has a hard time with hearing, you can always get see-through masks so that they can help understand the communication. And by all means, stay home if you're sick. And if you have any doubt, ask yourself a question. Is this absolutely necessary? Could we move it online? I know that we would all love to be in physical proximity to each other. And this is the next best thing, is being online. And we're really glad that you're here. So we want to talk about non-human natural supports. So Becky.
So 10 years ago, my sister called to ask if I wanted a dog. I said no, but my grandson really wanted a dog. I didn't need a house full of dog hair or another mouth to feed. And let's not forget the vet bills. OMG. It would be like supporting a whole nother person. So here's the deal, my sister said. She is 1 year old and jumped out of the truck and broke her leg. After $700 in debt in vet bills, she still can't herd cattle. But she is amazing with the little kids. Long story short, we had us a dog. Border Collie, Blue Heeler mix. And she became my grandson's #1 natural support. I heard stories about how some animals can sense their owners having problems, but I didn't really believe it until I saw her in action. If my grandson would have a bad dream, she would run in and jump on the bed and snuggle with him until he went back to sleep. I realize that not all dogs can be service dogs, but she is priceless.
And then also with the non-human natural supports, my best friend was trying to convince me to get a housekeeping monkey, which I thought was hilarious. So you can see that in this picture that's here. And they also can do other things. They can bring a diabetic orange juice if they're having a low blood sugar, because they can sense it. Another thing that's really important are medication reminders and dispensers. So Alexa and Siri can remind you to take your medication. And if that's not something you're comfortable with, there's actually medication dispensers. Some of them you can even purchase on Amazon if you aren't able to get it through your insurance, and have that medication dispensed at the time it's supposed to be dispensed to strongly reduce the risk of not taking the medication or taking too much of it. And also life alert. So if you fall in and you can't get up, there's an option to help you. Shauna, I think, oh no, actually it's going to be me. It was Shauna. Now it's back to me. So with some of the, oh, it was you, Shauna. Sorry.
Okay. So it's always a good thing to remember to say thank you. If your child is benefiting, maybe have them hold up a little thanks sign and text it to them. Doesn't have to be a big thing. Next steps are to be kind to yourself, to practice self-care. Please ask for help. I challenge you in the next 2 weeks. Ask for help. Ask somebody for a specific task. Take that risk. And join Melissa and the rest of us as we go through building resilience and addressing burnout on December 9th. We do have some sources here for you for the to look at where we got our information. Melissa, you want to walk us quickly through some of these?
So Lines for Life has several different lines that you can actually call. So they have a warm line, and you see that under the third on this list. And they also have a senior loneliness line, which is phenomenal. So for some individuals, being able to call and check in and have that communication can feel really good. And then there's also, which is brand new, as in the last few weeks, is the racial equity support line. So that is for individuals of color who have been experiencing life with racism or microaggressions, to be able to chat with people that have also experienced these same things. You see here, we also have the Kathleen Sadat Leadership Fund. So that is through Basic Rights Oregon. It is only until 12/31 of 2020. And it is for Black or African American people that are seeking to do something different. So if that's to start a business or perhaps even to buy books to attend school. Then last we have here is Utopia PDX. So there are several chapters, but there's one in Portland, and that is for Pacific Islanders. And they navigate, they have a lot of community resources, and they actually have a presentation coming up this Friday in case you want to check them out on Facebook.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. And then we have our resources here. They're listed in the chat, so if you want to download your chat and save those, that would be helpful. And then you can always contact us. Melissa, please follow Melissa on Instagram at Inspired Boldness. As always, Central Oregon Disability Support Network is there for you. And my work is at shaunasignorini.com. National Alliance on Mental Illness has some chapters all over Oregon. So please, if we can be of any help, let us know. And I don't see any questions that we've missed in the chat, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them up there. And Jenny, can we put it back to you?
Yes, thank you very much, Shauna. Appreciate it. Well, that was wonderful. I really appreciate you spending the last hour with us. At the end of today's webinar, you will receive an email within the next 24 hours asking you to fill out a survey. If you would do that, please, it helps us with showing our funders how we're spending their lovely money. Today was brought to you by Oregon Health Authority's CARES Act funding, and we really appreciate our panel for being here. And I'm seeing that there is just a great thanks everyone for everything, and we really appreciate the panel. Thanks for the great presentation and all the resources.
And Jenny, this will be online, so you'll be able to watch it on the YouTube video. So if you want to share it with someone afterwards, keep checking back at codsn.org, and you'll be able to share it from there.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.